these two kinds. Have you spent sleepless nights thinking of something? Right? Especially in the verge of making big decisions in life. Right? That leads me to say that we need not feel bad if our experience doesn't match up to someone else's. Because each one of us have different struggles. And I'm glad that as members of the church, we can freely talk to each other about our struggles in life. Right? It's healthy to have someone hear you about your struggle. Many Christians struggle with doubts and fear and then feel guilty. How did Jesus deal with doubts and fear? Let's go back to the story in the Bible in the book of Matthew, chapter 11, verses 2 and 3. Do you recall the occasion when John the Baptist was in jail because he openly rebuked King Herod of his sexual sins? And then King Herod sent him to jail. He was there for quite a long time. His friends, his followers started visiting him. And then he told them to go to Jesus and ask him these questions. What was the question? Matthew 11, 2 to 3. Are you the one who was to come? Or should we expect someone else? Obviously he's in doubt. Is this Christ that I baptized in the river Jordan is still the Messiah that I have believed on? Very powerful question. It may be troubling to some people. Why did John have these doubts in him? Remember John 1:29? What did he say? Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. And then in verse 34 he said, I have seen and I testify that this is the Son of God. And now he's questioning that. Make no mistake, John knew who Jesus was. But how could a man who was so certain about Jesus now harbor such doubt in him? The text does not provide exact answer to the question, but I think we all know part of the answer. This week I was discussing in my literature class, someone left the school and I have to substitute for 2 weeks. We were discussing a story by Anton Chekhov, The Bet. And then there was this big debate in a table. And they were debating about capital punishment. As a Christian country, we must not have death penalty. So, which one is better? Death penalty? You have this debate before. Obviously, this has been debated centuries ago. Is it better to send someone to rot in jail for the rest of his life or just kill him in a spur of the moment? And so they were debating. And then there was this banker who jumped in and said, no, the lawyer said, I think it's better to have life imprisonment. That is more humane. Then someone else said, no, you're actually killing him. You're actually prolonging his suffering to be in that position. And then the lawyer said, I will bet my life. I can go to jail. I can volunteer to go to jail and I will prove to you that this is better. And then the banker heard that, went to the table and said, I will give you 2 million if you can stay in jail for 5 years. The lawyer said, no, make it 15 years. And after that, I will claim my bet of 2 million. Well, for the banker, it was nothing. He has a lot of money, but long time ago, that was a very big amount of money. So they made a deal. They lock up that 2 million in a safe deposit. And then this lawyer volunteered to go to jail. First few years was a misery. You can't do anything. He was not allowed to leave his jail. He has his own toilet. He was served with his own food. He can ask for anything. So he was given volumes and volumes of books and all that. And it was a struggle. At night, sometimes he cried alone. Sometimes he shouts. Sometimes he exclaims his anxieties. You know how hard it is to be in jail. Can you imagine John the Baptist during that time? He knew Jesus. But the fact that you are there suffering put doubts into your faith, right? Well, the story ended up that on the night, because it has to finish at midnight on the 15th year, obviously he survived. That man survived. On the night of that last day, the banker could not sleep. 15 years after, it was a different story. He's no longer that rich. All he has is that 2 million in that safe. And he was thinking his life after this. What will happen to me? He's getting all of what I have in life. At noontime, he could not express himself. You know that feeling. He went to the jail. He wanted to congratulate the young man. He already lost 15 years of his life. And tell him, here's the 2 million, you can have it. I mean, it's just a few more hours. When he went to the jail, he clanged, the iron bars. No one was answering. It was not locked. Started calling the man. He's not answering. He was sitting next to his table. And he went inside and tapped the man. The lawyer was not answering. But there was a letter on the table. This was not a real man. This was a doll left in there. And in the letter, the lawyer, it's a long letter. It's 3 pages long. Explaining how being in jail changed his view of life. And reading all these books have changed his view of life. And he was no longer as he was before. And he decided to break the deal 5 hours before it ends. And then we left. We were discussing this and we decided as a class that no one won the bet at all. The banker who was reading the story was crying and learning from what that young man was reading, has written. And has learned a lot in life. And he said, after all, this bet was not useless. Gave them some point in life. Reminds me of Ate Bell. You remember Ate Bell? Her son was jailed for drugs. But he was not really involved. This was a group of friends who was caught using drugs. He was not there. And then in the process, they have implicated him as part of the group. And then he went to jail many years. And they were really good Christians, good Adventists. He stayed there in the jail probably 3 to 5 years, and finally he was found not guilty. Then he began to think. One day she asked me, I said, let's continue praying. Sometimes things like this happen to you and we don't invite this to our lives. But then you start to doubt. And John was in that place. He was there in the jail. He was languishing in prison, not knowing when or he would be released after this. And John began to wonder and he began to doubt. He sent his disciples to ask Jesus, at least, they asked the right question. Are you the one sent from heaven? Or is there someone else who is going to be your Savior? Are you really the promised Messiah? The answer to that was that Jesus did not answer that question directly. He gave them the evidence. And this is what the answer was. He lists 6 miracles. Go back, and he says, go back and tell John what you have seen. The blind see, the lame walks, the lepers are cured, the deaf can hear, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. That was Jesus' answer to them. Note that he didn't say, tell John, I am the Messiah. He didn't say that. Tell John that I am the fulfillment of the promises of the Messiah in the Old Testament. That is true, but he didn't say that. Tell John that I can walk on water. That again is true, but he didn't say that. Tell John that I make the prophecies look like fools. Very true, but he didn't say that. Jesus essentially says, go back, tell John that in my name, the hurting people of the world are being totally transformed. Amen? In Matthew 11, verses 7 to 11, notice what happens next. As John's disciples were leaving, Jesus began to speak to the crowd about John. What did you go out into the desert to see? A reed swayed by the wind? If not, what did you go out